Dad was always keen. He was like, just do it while you're young. Let's give it our all and see how far we can go with it. They actually had almost had the house paid off. But, you know, we had this idea of let's go superbike racing. So they definitely put in a major amount of money to buy this bike.
That's Josh Soderland's crash. Oh, just got on the gas and spat him over the high side.
Hi, my name's Joshua Soderland. I'm 22 years old. I'm a full-time motorcycle mechanic and I like to race motorcycles on the weekend. Being young, not at daycare, I would just come to the workshop and, you know, Dad would look after me here and I'd be sitting on his bench playing with his tools and, you know, sucking on greasy bolts and just loved it. Always been at the shop. My dad was always around bikes as well because of my grandfather. He loved it. He got into racing, speedway, flat track as well. A little bit of 125 Grand Prix bike, stuff like that. And when he worked out that he could go racing for the weekend and not have to come home and wash the dirt bikes, he loved it. He was just all about it. So he stuck to road racing. He sort of went up in the ranks of club racing, ended up becoming an A-grade road racer and sort of doing some endurance racing, like Castrol endurance races and doing some Australian superbikes and Formula Extreme racing. So he was pretty good. Me and my brother, we both started on Peewee 50s, like most young little kids.
Guide him around, Matt. That's it, slow. Back brake.
Me and my brother were riding along and my parents were in the car behind recording.
This is Joshua on his very first ride.
And I would be turning around, hey Mum, look at me. And they're like, don't look at us, just keep looking forward, you're gonna hit something. From the Peewee 50s, we then had little KTM 65s and just trail bike riding them as well. And we stopped riding for a little bit. Dad was racing, getting a little bit more serious, and they had just purchased the business. So a lot of the money was going to that and Dad's racing.
Here's Mummy trying to run him over.
So I'd sort of just got into video games and, you know, with that you stop going outside, you know, so I put on a little bit of weight. So I remember school holidays, you know, I would wake up, play video games all day, go to bed, wake up, play video games, you know, going out less, you know, gaining weight, getting bigger. But then a couple of years later, we begged Dad enough to say, all right, let's go riding again. We're missing it. Dad had his original Honda XR75 that he learnt on how to ride. And then it passed on to his brother and then to his younger brother as well. And then they ended up selling it. But probably, you know, 15 years later, they ended up finding it and buying it back. So my brother learnt how to ride gears on that bike.
I did too.
You did too.
All on the little one.
The little red Honda.
So I got to learn
Everyone.
first, then Matt, and then Josh.
Wow.
Oh, and then our friends, kids. And
Everybody.
That bike has taught so many people.
And from there, it just started, you know, we were a little bit older, so we're just begging Dad to go trail bike riding every weekend. Nothing too serious, just trail bike riding with family and friends. Yeah, we loved it. I ended up going up to a KTM 250 and then up to a 450 eventually, while my brother as well, he had a KTM 300. And we were still all just trail bike riding. But when I had the KTM 450, it was road legal, so I started to get my road license, and I was watching heaps of YouTube videos on supermoto bikes, and my brother ended up buying me a set of supermoto wheels. So I was riding around on the street and loving it, having heaps of fun, you know, probably doing some silly things. I'd always wanted to race motorbikes, but then once I had started working, You know, I started earning my own income. It's like, all right, cool, I've got some money. Let's start doing more track days, and that's how it really had started. Motard is the best form of road racing that you can get into when you're younger. It's cheap, you know. We had a bike transport company come in, and the driver, he knew about New South Wales supermoto riders, and he said, oh, I've seen your motard out the front, you know, come on out, add them on Facebook, come on out for a ride day. I got lucky when I went on the Facebook that week. The next week after, they had a ride day coming up straight away, so I instantly booked that. I got my recreational racing license, and I was able to go to a track day. And yeah, from there did some supermoto racing, loved it. My first motard meeting up at Port Macquarie, I crashed every race, you know. Coming from a dirt bike rider, I would come into the dirt section just trying to push hard to make up time, and I was just crashing. You know, they weren't big crashes, it was just a little tuck the front here, fall on your shoulder, you know, or lose the rear end getting on the gas too hard. But, you know, being the motard, if you're unlucky, you bend a set of bars, or you got bark busters as well. So you don't bend levers, don't break levers often, and you don't have fairings of a sports bike, you know. So the smash repairs are far a lot cheaper, and you can find the limit, you know. You can afford to crash, and you're not going as fast as well. Being young as well, yeah, you bounce a little bit. And I was a big kid as well, so I tend to bounce pretty well.
Bounce it.
So being a bigger kid maybe wasn't a bad thing at the start, because I bounced nicely off the ground. So that was good. Yeah. Being that big, you know, it was hard work. I'm watching these little kids ride around, and they're just doing, you know, 20-minute sessions, coming in, talking like they're fine. I was hopping off the bike and I was just exhausted, you know. You'd ride for, I was riding for 10 minutes and coming in and just lathered in sweat, just exhausted. The muscle fatigue as well. And around that time I was about 125, 130 kilos, so I was a big kid. We started getting a little bit more serious about the motard racing, and Dad was just saying, mate, you know, you lose weight, you gain better acceleration, and you gain better braking as well. So weight reduction's the best thing possible. You know, you can get more horsepower, but that only helps you accelerating, you know, down the straight as well. I'd met Poe at a track day at Luddenham. I was sitting in this cheap camping chair, and I'd gone to sat up, and I just instantly snapped one of the handles off. And I was like, oh God, I didn't know whose chair it was at that point. And I was just like, I've just broken someone's chair. One of the guys said, oh, that was Poe's chair. He was out riding. So when he had come in, I'm like, hey man, I was sitting in your chair, I'm so sorry, I just snapped the handles off it. He's like, oh dude, come on. He was okay though. He said, oh, it was just a cheap chair, don't worry about it. But that was my first interaction with Poe. Poe is my manager at the moment and just mentor, and sort of I just look after him, and he helps me out so much. So he owns a gym, Alpha Team Fitness, and he invited me along and said, hey, come to the gym, you know, I can see you're riding, you know, you're loving it, you're committed as well. You just need to lose weight really. So he started PTing me, you know, we were trying to PT twice a week or so. since then I've been able to lose, you know, around 40 kilos, so it's been awesome. Meeting him, he's helped me just get to that next level of fitness and just being able to ride more consistently on the bike and not being so exhausted, you know. When you're exhausted and you're riding, you don't make good decisions, you make silly mistakes, you know, your lap times are gonna fall off and you're trying to be as consistent as possible. So it's a good thing that the hobby, you need to be fit, you know? And so I had a goal to lose weight, you know? I wanted to lose weight myself to go faster. So that was it. And having a goal like that, it makes it easy, you know, it makes you hungry to go faster. So it was like, all right, I'm gonna go to the gym 3 days a week this week, focus on losing weight, eating healthy. You know, every time I'd see chocolate and it's like, nah, I wanna go fast. It's not worth it. It's for how hard it is to burn it off. Nah, I'd rather go faster this weekend. From the Supermoto, we moved up to little 600s. So my first 600 was a Triumph Daytona. It was half set up for track days. And then at the start, that's all we sort of decided to do was just track days. But then I just loved it and wanted to go more racing as well because we were still racing the Supermoto. So we were racing the 600s. I didn't actually race it for that long. It was maybe half a season, you know, 6 months, if that. And this was at the start of COVID. And there was an R1 that had gone up for sale pretty cheap. And it was in sort of middle of COVID, so I guess not many people were buying them because the tracks were shut down. So I bought it and I planned to sell it, you know, a bit time after and try and make a little bit of money on it. But of course, before you sell it, you have to ride it at least once. So this was a 2015 R1. And I went and did a track day with it and just instantly fell in love. You know, I wasn't scared of the power from going to a 600 up to a Superbike. It was good and I fit on it really nicely. So yeah, we moved up to the 1000 class. At the start, I was still doing the 600 and 1000 class. So I was racing back to back at some of the night series racing. But from there on, stuck to the 1000s. We got the Ducati V4 1100. We raced that for quite a while. Unfortunately, it wasn't legal for the Australian Superbike Championship. And my goal was always to get into the ASBK class. I had had some good results and, you know, was always getting comfortable on the bike and I had, you know, lost a lot of weight. Every weekend, if there was a track day on, I was there. You know, dirt track racing, motocross going for practice, flat track racing, supermoto, you know, every weekend if I could, I was at the track. I was also constantly staying back at work, you know, working on my race bikes so that they were ready for the weekend. I was doing all the maintenance and work on the bikes myself. So my parents could tell I was always committed. And we had the opportunity to get a bike that was going to be legal for the Australian Superbike Championship. The problem was that it's very expensive, and being a third-year motorcycle mechanic, I definitely didn't have that money. Dad clearly had a good chat with Mum and persuaded her, you know, let's support him. So they pulled a decent amount of money off the home loan. They actually had almost had the house paid off, but you know, we had this idea of let's go superbike racing. So they definitely put in a major amount of money to buy this bike, and I've been able to pay most of that back now. But yeah, they definitely, at the start, they put in a massive amount to get the bike. So I ended up buying Bo Beaton's V4R from when he was done. It's got full Motec and, you know, all the gear. It's an awesome bike. So started racing that and I've done a couple of rounds of Australian Superbike since then. It's been awesome. But getting the bike was one thing, and then coming up with the money to keep entering the rounds, you know, it's expensive. I sat down the other day for a couple of hours and put a budget together and worked out how much it actually cost to go racing. The bike, the maintenance, tires, time, travel, you know. I almost regret sitting down and working out how much it costs, because I'd rather just not know. It's easier to just pay it as you go, and it doesn't seem like that much. You never have any money in your bank account, but it doesn't seem like, oh, I'm spending 120K to go racing this year. And you think, I don't even earn half of that. How am I gonna afford this? You know, so. And it's not actually the 7 rounds of ASBK that's expensive, it's all the testing. You do ASBK 7 rounds, there's no point in doing ASBK if you're not practicing. To practice, you've got to do the club racing. There's 3 rounds of club racing, then there's 6 rounds of night racing in New South Wales. And that's just New South Wales at one track. So then you go to Queensland, you got to do 2 rounds of club racing up there to do the Queensland Championship. And you got to go to Melbourne as well. And you know, next weekend we're going to Adelaide for 3 days. And that's not even racing. That's just 3 days of track day to learn the track. Yeah, putting that budget together, work out how much a season cost, it hurt. You know, I had a big shock. I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was that expensive. We're lucky we've got sponsors, and we are such a small team that, you know, the sponsors can see and they can tell that we're putting in a lot of effort. At the start, club racing, you know, you'd come in from a session, you'd hopefully have an awesome race with someone, you know, you'd come in, chuck the tyre warmers on. Maybe if you were smart, you'd probably put fuel in the tank before you forget. But you know, you'd then go talk to your mates, be like, that was an awesome race. Oh dude, did you see me pass you down here? Oh, that was hairy, that got a bit close. You know, oh yeah, I pulled out of that pass. With the Aussie Superbikes, you know, we come in from a race and we instantly plug the computer in, and I'm sitting on the computer and it's working out, all right, is the suspension set up perfect? Do I need to go more preload, you know, stiffer springs? What can we change? All right, is the fueling good? You know, so for the Aussie Superbikes, we've all sort of got our role, and you know, we don't tend to have so much time to just go out and talk. The aim is to never have a mechanical issue, you know. We try to do debriefs after every session now, you know. I'll come in, sit down, and I'll just mention, all right, the gearing down the straight, it was short, or my gear lever, it was too high, too low, we need to change that. And, you know, adjusting all that stuff straight away. And we tend to just keep everything in a bit of a folder. What changes we made that day, you know, just talk about what we learned. Even on a bad weekend, we can still look at so many positives that we've learned. So hopefully, if we show some good preparation, testing as much as we can, and we get some decent results, you can almost say, hey, with this stuff, we've done this. We should be able to do that with, you know, this much more. So 2023, a lot of it was learning the procedures of how an ASBK weekend works was one of the big things. All the sessions in between, how many tyres to get ready on the day, the grid up procedures, how to set up a bike, you know, with very minimal seat time, track time that you've got at the track was something we had to learn big time as well. So riding the Ducati, we learned a lot about how to actually ride a superbike, you know, V'ing the corners off, how to properly brake hard instead of running sort of super sport lines. And if you're an already, you know, seasoned veteran and you're hopping on the Ducati, you can go really fast. And that's why they are the fastest in the group or in the paddock. But when you're trying to learn how to ride a superbike, riding a Ducati probably isn't the easiest thing. The biggest compromise was the cost of everything. Mileage on the bike was one of the biggest expenses, and just due to stresses on the motors, they weren't worth rebuilding. Smash repairs as well on the Ducati definitely weren't cheap. And at the start of 2024, we got a good sponsorship opportunity with Yamaha and Trooperloos, and knowing the support at the tracks with YRD was just, yeah, a no-brainer. Move over to Yamaha. Setting up the Yamaha is a little bit easier, less things to change, so less things to get wrong. You know, the window of operation for the Yamaha seemed a bit bigger to go fast on. We were blown away with the edge grip that the Yamaha had compared to the Ducati. So 2024, we learned a lot on the bike setup. We've also done coaching with multiple other riders. I've done a bit of coaching with Anthony West, Damien Cudlin, and Ted Collins. And we've learned specific things with each different coach. You know, the bike's great. There's a lot that I need to learn now. And with the coaching and the data, we know what's wrong. And I just need seat time to focus that, improve it all. Overall, we've done about 10 rounds of ASBK now, from the 7 rounds we did this year, the 3 rounds in 2023. And for 2025, we're looking at doing the full season again, really hoping to just make that next step up. You know, we were running in the top 13 a lot of this year. To get in the back of the top 10 would be really cool. So hopefully we can, you know, make it to that top 10 and build from there. In racing, you can either beat your teammate or the other rookie, you know? And we don't have a teammate, so, but yeah, every weekend it's just, if I beat Paris, that's a good weekend.
He just could not believe that no matter how fast he rode, he couldn't get away from this girl. And yeah, there's been a few situations like that where guys have just been absolutely blown away because they just didn't expect it. And yeah, she's humbled quite a few people